Let's
Rules
go to
and whatnot.
changes to Title I
Okay,
of the
I'm just
city
gonna
code.
sit up here, keep it a little informal,
Okay.
and fill in the minutes later.
You don't have any overheads or any visual displays?
I don't.
What have we come to?
So chapter one, a lot of the changes that are in chapter one are just really very basic, general, just kind of cleaning up a little bit of language. Just to note too, I was looking
Let's make
at,
sure you tell us where you are, Jen.
okay, so starting on page 2, when everybody's
Okay,
ready.
The rules or procedures?
Which one?
The one that says on the front cover, rules of procedure incorporated into city code.
Revisions to
Incorporated
Title
in-
I
Not this one,
of the Waterloo City
Nope,
Code.
not that one,
Not that one.
not that one.
not that one.
The one that looks like this,
Oh,
which isn't
Well, I've
allowed.
got two.
revisions to Title I.
So not this one, but that one there.
Great.
First draft, right?
Yep, I've also got it uploaded to Novus too.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, chapter 1, starting on page 2, under 1-1-2, computing time / holidays. I was looking at this again with,
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Where are you at? Where are you?
page 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said two. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was looking for it on the, mine, I didn't find it.
Page 2?
See, I got my notes.
Oops. Not here. Which one am I? I got that one, I got that one?
It'll be this one.
This one? Okay.
If you want, I can take away all of your,
Well, I don't know, I
Extraneous?
went over here, that's where I normally,
My
cause there's no
extraneous
attachments
stuff.
on this. Be here,
This is one we're looking at. This is the
Okay,
local.
I got it.
perfect,
there we go.
thank
I'm
you.
in.
Okay. Are we all in?
So what should we do with the rest of these?
If you want, I can take them back.
We're not ever gonna look at them?
No.
Well,
Just
okay,
work off
good.
of the
Take them
copy.
all back.
This is the red line one, so this will have the underline and all that.
Yep.
This is what? This is a complete,
Yep, so we just, at our last work session, we discussed having the rules of procedure all incorporated into the city code.
okay,
So that separate policy, we won't be working off of that.
and we won't be doing this?
Correct.
And
Do
we
you have an
won't be
extra pen?
doing this?
Don't you have one now?
Pardon me?
Don't you have
I
one?
got electric, I don't need,
Sure.
yeah, you're fine. I got a pencil, that's fine, that's all right.
I forgot my pen.
Oh, you want an extra?
I got it.
If you,
I get it.
do we need any extra copies run quick?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, so, chapter 1, my thought is we'll just go chapter by chapter.
Yep.
I'll kind of give you a little overview of what was changed, and then just ask questions as we go. Chapter 1, the changes here are all pretty minor, just kind of cleaning up some language. I want to draw your attention to 1-1-2, computing time and holidays. I was reviewing this again with the city attorney, and we both agreed that the red line that's in there, we're not going to take that out. We're going to keep that in, because that's going to correlate a little bit better with what we have in state law for filing appeals, things like that.
So you're including what's crossed through.
Yep, so we're going to include that. So I will, the next time we meet, that'll be updated.
Okay.
Chapter 2,
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ones. We gotta look
Ms. Felkley,
I got it.
Mr. Morrissey.
okay,
that look alike.
on page 3, you wanted us to go through the first 8 pages, correct?
Yes, I said we'd go chapter by chapter. So you have something on page 3?
But you said the first 8 pages for this work session.
Depending on how far we get. We may go farther if we can get through.
Okay, okay, well, what the hey? Okay, well,
Not that version.
okay, so page 3, the top of the page, joint authority. Words giving a joint authority to 3 or more public officers, will you explain that? Because that almost implies to me that public officers would be city council members, and 3 city council members can't give authority to the majority.
I can ask the city attorney about that. That's language that was already present in the code, and that's been present in the code for several years.
Well, the code's wrong.
Let's question that. then.
Okay.
Cool.
And then, moving on, to me, confusion, there's just, it abounds, using a
It abounds?
phrase. Yes, confusion abounds.
Such as?
Are we supposed to take these words literally, figuratively? We supposed to take them broadly? Because as an example of, look at what they put down as property, and then the phrase and or and person, tense. I mean, these
okay.
are things that,
So going back to which one?
okay, so,
Yeah, when we're talking about this, I don't want to jump around from one to another to another to another all at the same time. I'd like to focus on what you have a question about.
well, my question is about this entire page 3. Starting with joint authority, it looks like the definitions, because this is a definition section, I do believe,
Yep. Rules of construction and definitions.
and they seem rather, just so broad that they could almost be interpreted by different people in different ways, creating confusion and ambiguity, if we were having some pretty hefty or conflictual, controversial measures put forward, and words were used like they got in here, and people took them differently, but they understood that they could take it that way and interpret it that way. And I, as an example, I give the phrase or and. Or and may be read and may be read or. Okay, so which is it? Or and, stuff like that. It's just so, it's not concrete, it's not literal. It is open to ambiguity. That's all I'm saying with many of the definitions on page 3. Kelly?
Can you tell me specifically what ones? Is it just every definition on page 3 that causes you confusion, or are there specific ones that don't?
Well, I can only use an example, page 3, because page 3 is the place where those kinds of definitions
Okay.
are put in such terms that they make it subject to, well, which is it? Which is it going to be? As an example, oath or affirmation, the word oath includes affirmations in all cases, where an affirmation may be substituted for an oath. In like cases, the word swear includes affirm.
Okay.
Well, I've never been privy to any of this kind of stuff
Okay.
in my whole time on council, and I don't know if anybody else on council has, until we're reading it right now. So,
You may not have. You may not have never ever read this section of the code.
and what I'm saying is somebody could use this then in a way to confuse an issue or create some kind of controversy where there doesn't need to be one if there was a more literal definition.
You mean and, or and, or and.
Or means
confusing.
and,
So or
or
means
and
and.
means or.
Something to think about
Depending upon
too.
what you want it to mean.
These are legal.
How come right
Yeah,
there?
kind of jumping off what you're about to say, Mrs. Klein. These are the people who would necessarily be interpreting these wouldn't just be some random member of the public. It would be attorneys. And a lot of these are legal construction, terms of legal construction that are going to be interpreted by legal counsel and that are consistent in other city codes as well.
I understand
I
that.
believe these words have been parsed by the legal field and chosen because in the common vernacular, they can be confused. And this is so to put it down on paper so that when it comes before a court or any sort of a referee, they will have words to go by here. And I know it sounds kind of confusing, but it reads to me just like my will reads to me. You know, just like my daughter's in the legal field, and these all are legalese verbiage.
So when we put together a development agreement, this is the verbiage, the legal verbiage that's based upon the development agreement that we're using. You know,
When you're-
this verbiage.
It'd probably be better to have an attorney talk about some of these
Mr.
things.
Mayor.
'Cause
So
I
if
just
it,
look at
I
that
think if it
or
would
and
be,
and that
Let's,
is
let's
it
take-
would be helpful, I think, maybe I'll take some time and chat with Dave about this 1-1-2, these rules of definitions and catch lines and things like that.
Ms.
Would
Falkley,
that be helpful?
We got
Well-
Mr. Amos has asked.
Mr. Mayor, just looking at the or and that Councilman Morrissey is talking about, the first two or and are telling us that or may be read as and may be read as or. So it's just basically saying that you can substitute and for or for and.
When I say or and can be used interchangeably.
Right, yeah, that's all it's saying.
Can we
Well,
do that?
and person is another good example. Sometimes there's sections of code that talk about a person, but a person can also be a corporation, and that can be substituted interchangeably depending on the context of what you're talking about.
Better be careful, the other side of the room on that one.
I know. I think we have one side of the room that wants everything very, very literal.
Well, property, that's got me. Were you down, Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
well, okay, so the reason why I bring this up is, okay, so if we want this to be a document that only can be interpreted by lawyers, then make it that way. But I thought that we were gonna create a code, a city code that was going to be for everybody to read and understand. This is not that. This page, this full page. This is a legalese thing that you need an attorney to interpret according to that attorney's legalese.
Well-
But you can get another attorney on the other side that would interpret it a different way.
The
That's
same
all
thing
I'm
goes
saying.
with a contract too, though. I mean, there's a million different ways to interpret a contract. And part of this rules of construction here is kind of listing out, these are the scenarios where these words can be interpreted or substituted. But I think in the sake of time and moving on and making
Sure.
progress, I think we probably just need to have the city attorney come and talk through with council
Sure.
the legalese behind the construction of words and definitions as it applies to our city code. Anything else?
Coming back to
Coming back,
page 2 and
chapter
3.
2.
Okay, good.
Anything else with chapter 1?
Yes,
Okay.
page 4, catch lines.
Again, I think I'm going to chalk all of chapter 1 up to having an attorney interpret what that's for.
So yeah, so let's go to chapter 2 and we'll come back to chapter 1 if you don't mind. All right, municipal charter.
Again, chapter 2, really no significant changes here. Any questions, though, about this part? I guess the most significant change is I took away the mayor's ability to have the seal,
Have what?
have a copy of the city seal in his office.
Ms.
So I don't
Falkley?
think you have one anyway.
Ms. Falkley?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 1-2-1A, why do we have to have July 24th, 1972 date there?
That is the date where a state law change took place that established forms of government. And we were required to have charters after that. So that's in basically everybody's city code in the state of Iowa.
So we are a charter government?
Yes.
We have a chartered form of government?
We have a mayor council form of government, and this section of the code is our charter as a government.
Okay. Okay. Magna Carta?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's our Magna Carta.
And I was wondering in powers and duties, in D, shouldn't we include policies, resolutions, rules, regulations, and policies of the city?
Where are you, Pat?
or 1-2-1D.
Or does that refer to what the state says of the council and then what we have within our ordinances? This is not talking about,
Yeah, because you're going to set a policy by a resolution.
which tells how you govern.
Yeah.
Right,
So everything.
and can't we
matters.
do that?
So I would say including the word policy would be redundant because you're setting
Okay.
policy by
Just a
resolution.
question, and then in 1-2-1E2, or excuse me, 1-2-1F, couldn't we make the mayoral term 4 years?
You cannot change the term of the mayor. Just by changing the ordinance, it would require a petition from the public.
It would.
It would, and it would require a vote by the public too.
I thought you could do that when we're doing, the city council could do that. We can't.
You
you're
cannot,
saying.
no, that's state law. Any other changes with, or questions about chapter 2?
131.
Okay.
Page 6.
Chapter 3,
Oh, okay, yeah.
first change in there, we struck out in a sum not exceeding $500 and inserted the language in line with maximums allowed by state law to give us some flexibility that if the legislature changes the maximum amount that we can charge for a fine, then it'll automatically be set that way. We won't have to come back and change the ordinance every single time.
But we would have to come back to change it for imprisonment? You're just changing the maximums for fines.
Correct.
Should we also change the days for imprisonment?
I can ask the city attorney about that one.
Yeah, it could.
I'm gonna ask you,
Sure.
who is this part referring to? Councilman, mayor, or?
That is referring to anybody who gets a municipal infraction.
Us?
If a council member was given a municipal infraction, yeah.
I can't do prison.
We'll put that in the code.
So we have municipal infractions 132. Is there any change that needs to be made in A? Yes, sir.
Yes, just a question, that sentence there, a violation shall not be a municipal infraction if it is a felony, an aggravated misdemeanor, serious misdemeanor under state law, or if the violation is a simple misdemeanor under Iowa Code Chapter 687 through 747. What are all those? I mean, that's chapter 687 through 747 includes quite a bit of info.
It does.
So do we know what that means to us when we are writing a municipal infraction if we're not, in fact, writing something that is a simple misdemeanor covered under one of those chapters?
I guess I would say the individuals writing the municipal infractions are aware of those
And that
sections
would
of
be,
state law.
and the only people that write municipal infractions
Would
are
be the police
the police
officers or
department.
code enforcement.
Okay, so is there any way to get a listing of what that includes? Or what it excludes? Would
So-
it may be easier?
You want a listing of all those state laws?
No, I want
I
a
guess,
listing of what
I'm-
violations would be excluded
Okay.
under 687 through 747.
Do you want that written into the code, or you're just wanting
No.
copies?
No, he just want a point.
I just
point
want
of
the,
reference.
yeah, information, just point of information.
Okay.
And if they are, and if there's something that's not listed, then that means if the city has deemed it a violation, then it becomes a municipal infraction. Correct?
Yeah, so But we just send the web link for folks to go to. It's right here.
It's on the state's website.
Take a look at that. All right, let's keep.
Any other, another
Are we
big,
gonna get a list of those then?
I'm
Just
email
the
it to you.
title of the, okay. cool.
yeah, that's, I wasn't prepared to provide copies of state law today. Administrative fees, that was a section we felt needed to be pulled out. It adds on, in
Where
it-
are you?
sorry, that would be letter E, just before chapter 4 on page 7.
Gotcha.
That adds on a significant charge in addition to the municipal infractions. That's pretty burdensome to our public. So we felt that it would be prudent to eliminate these. We did some research too and found out that we were the only city charging administrative fees on top of these violations.
Have we been charging them, Kelly?
We had charged them in the past, yes.
Do we open ourselves to any liability of people wanting refunds or not? Okay. At the time, yeah.
Let's have, because we have how much longer?
Yeah, there were some questions
20
about
minutes.
the first part, section 1-1-2, with some of the definitions that were included.
Like, or may be
We're
read,
gonna be doing this
and,
year from now.
and may be read, or. It's confusing.
Nobody else has an issue. Or at least they
But
nobody
he
did.
does bring out some questions that make sense. That blank or doesn't make sense to me.
And there's two of you, it doesn't make sense. You sure that
Well, we're
says?
not as smart as you.
I didn't say that. I think you were reading too much into it, girl. Help me, Margaret, help me.
What's that I'm off in a fugue state.
You got a buyer,
I'm thinking of and and or.
you got a buyer to
I
zoom
think
in.
that's what we were talking about, is and and or.
That's right.
And it does make sense, it doesn't, I mean, that doesn't make
Legal.
sense.
It's illegal.
It doesn't make sense.
It says.
Did we have any other questions about administrative fees and taking those out? Sorry.
Nope. Call it back to order.
Okay, okay. Any other questions about taking out administrative fees? We're good with that? Okay. Chapter 4.
Oh, boy, here we go.
So,
This is all new.
because of how I had to rearrange how this part of the code was done, it's all gonna be blue. However, there is some language that is a holdover
All of this was
roll-
written before where?
in the city code.
Okay.
Role of mayor and council. That section just primarily adds a little bit of clarity about the role of the executive branch and the legislative branch within our city. It essentially sums up things that are already listed in state code. Any questions about that?
About 1-4-1.
Mm-hmm. One 4-2, in section A, that's, gets at, kind of the relationship that the council, I think, already does a good job of maintaining with staff. Lets council know that they're more than welcome to ask staff questions about, like if a constituent has a concern, go to department heads, ask questions. If there's an agenda item coming up, asking department heads or city staff members information about agenda items, things like that, so that you have more information to effectively be a council member.
Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, so the second line there, council members may make inquiries of employees. Okay, so, I don't understand why it's employees rather than why it doesn't say department heads or their designee. I mean, why would I have a reason to contact an employee unless I went through a department head or the mayor. But as a council member, if I get complaints, as an example, that something is not going okay, or that there is a question, I believe that council should have, part of their responsibility to contact the department head. You're not badgering them or anything like that, I'm gonna talk about that, but asking a question or giving them a complaint that was sent your way. And I don't want to bother the mayor with every phone call I get, when I know the department heads, and I can go ahead and call them and just pass on that information to them. And then what the department head, like Paul, would decide to do with it, if he needed to reach the mayor or whatever with that. Because the mayor's time's valuable, our time's valuable, but if the issue is with a certain department, that's why I don't want to make inquiries of employees. If I need to reach an employee, I'm going to do it outside of working hours, so that nobody faces any jeopardy from that. Unless you're saying that it's okay, Mr. Mayor and Kelly, for us to say, hey, I want to talk to John Q over in the Cultural Affairs office or something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
I have gotten in the habit of making my first email or call to the mayor, and it's a habit that I didn't begin with, but that I developed over time, and it feels natural because being on the Board of Education for several years, I learned that the chief administrator, knows things that perhaps the complaint that comes my way has already been resolved and can alleviate that before it ever has to go into a department. So I feel that that's a very good safety mechanism for the employees, so that they don't answer to too many bosses.
But this doesn't say that.
No, I think we're going in two directions. Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So first it says may, doesn't say have to, so it doesn't say you have to talk to these people, it says you may. Number two, I don't see anywhere where it says department heads are not employees. So it says employees, so that could be Paul. But you're saying you couldn't go to a Paul's underling, this doesn't say Paul's underling, this could be Paul.
No, it does. No, that's what I'm suggesting,
what he's
that it
saying.
should say. It should not say
I'm just,
employees.
but I'm saying, I get a lot of calls. I may get more calls than you just because I'm the at-large councilman. I don't know, and, that's kind of irrelevant, but there are many times where and I've been doing this for a while, I send a question to the department head, maybe to the individual I know is directly involved with it. I always copy the mayor, so he's in the loop on it. And between everybody's schedule, everybody's vacation, everybody doing other stuff, ultimately, we want to get a question back to the citizen that raised the question. We want to get the answer back to them. And I just want to do it in the most expeditious manner possible. And I don't think for one person in an organization of 550, for everything to go through that one person, I think is just crazy.
You mean the mayor?
Whoever. Yeah, whoever, if we're saying we're going to have one
That's what
person,
I'm suggesting, Steve.
that we do that?
Yes, that's what I do around.
Okay, well, that's not the way
I
the
would
world
not.
works where I work. so.
I would not contact Paul Huddings, one of his workers, to ask them a question. I would call Paul. I don't think that the mayor needs to be bothered with something that just is a piece of information that was given to me, or a concern that was given to me that I know that's going to get to Paul. And then I can get right back to whoever called me. And if it's something that I, as a city council representative, feel that the mayor should know about, then I would contact him, or the department head would contact him. To me, that's the most efficient, time-efficient way to do it. It saves time all the way around, Steve.
I never contact a department head or an employee without copying the mayor.
Yeah.
Ever. Not through 3 mayors.
Well, I don't
That's the way it's
do
always
email,
done.
I do phone calls.
Okay, well, I don't have,
Well, the problem we run into
Time
is,
for that
the
11
problem we
o'clock at
run
night.
into, we have 7 council members, and, you may think you're the only person contacting Paul, but Paul has gotten 7 different emails, and now he's to the point where he's taking time out of his schedule to be able to answer. You know, questions are decent, but the changing of work priorities is what happens sometimes with some of these questions. Asking a department head to come up with a full report on something that was outside of what they normally do.
B addresses that, though.
Right, but I'm just giving an example. That becomes burdensome. Like I just seen one department head get like several questions, and then that's additional work that they have to do. At some point, we're going to have a particular balance. So we just need to be mindful. We need to be mindful of that.
Mr.
And
Mayor?
so let me add to the point. So I would probably think if you need to talk to somebody in Randy's department, it needs to go through me and Randy. It doesn't need to go to someone that may not have collected garbage or refuse that day. That's Randy's responsibility to deal with folks in his department. So
Mr. Mayor? Go ahead. What do you prefer then? Because if you email, then it's easy to email both Paul and you at the same time and accomplish what you're talking about, and I like that approach. But if you're calling, what do you want us to do? Call you first or call the department head first?
okay, I'm gonna I wish I can be very candid about this. There has been times when folks and council, I'll leave it alone right now. But
Can I say
What do you
I'll
prefer?
talk to you individually about some of the situations and probably why now some of us may have to go to court, because there's certain things that have to be done in a certain way of the department head interest and within the interest of the city. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to continue by saying it's chain of command. You are at the top of the pyramid, and they work under your direction daily. And I just don't believe the 7 of us should be interrupting their daily work unnecessarily. And I think the first phone call, the first email should go to you.
And then I send it to the department heads.
If you see fit, that's where it breaks.
That's your choice.
Yes,
But
sir.
if it is an email, I have no problem with sending it to the department head and the mayor at the same time.
And a couple other council members, because
Yeah,
chances are you
yeah,
and I are both
yeah.
dealing with the same thing,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if I can interject here. For me, the way that I do things and have felt like this has worked for me, what I do is when I receive a phone call from one of my constituents, after they've told me what's going on, I automatically either direct them to you or to that department head. And what I tell them is the individuals downtown are the ones who you need to talk to try and get this accomplished, whatever it is. And then what I tell them is once you do that, if you do not get satisfaction, give me a call back, because I know who the boss is, and I will direct you that way. But I always believe in giving the city employees, whether it be department heads or whoever, the opportunity to do their job.
So you help people advocate for themselves first, and then you.
Exactly.
But then you don't find out the results.
If believe me, if they don't get what
They
they
don't
want,
like
they're
it.
going to call me back. There's no doubt about it.
Mr. Morrissey.
Well, the sentence reads, council members, which each one of us as elected officials are at the top of the chain when it comes down to decision-making when we're here as a body. And so as council members may make inquiries of employees, and all I'm saying is that should be may make inquiries of department heads or their designee. And then the rest of the sentence is for the limited, legitimate purpose of informing themselves regarding agenda items or important affairs of an immediate and urgent nature. That's different. Okay, that is, today I contacted 2 people about agenda items. Does that mean, Mr. Mayor and Kelly and all you others, that I'm supposed to contact you to ask questions about agenda items that are listed under department heads? I think that's wrong, and
That's
it,
more of an inquiry to something that's related to an agenda item.
correct, that's what this sentence is, that's what I'm talking about.
But I'm talking about a citizen calls upset about a situation where they haven't received some type of service, and it involves contacting a department head, or you want someone to go out and patch up a street or move a employee to do something else. Those types of inquiries are things that need to go through here. Asking about something that's on the agenda, that's fine, but asking a department head to do a report without coming to at least let me know about it or talk about it first, I have a problem. General inquiries, that's fine. And I don't know how, you said B clarifies that.
And those are specific, it could be general, but it could be specific, but in what I had talked about before, in no way did that infer that I was trying to tell any department person to steward anything.
I'm just throwing out, I'm throwing out some challenges that we've had, not that you that you made an inquiry about that. I'm just throwing out challenges, not directed at you.
And as another example, Mr. Mayor, today I called Sandy Greco because 2 of the delineators of Park Avenue have been out for 3 days. And I just called and told her that. So does that mean I'm supposed to call you to say, can I call Sandy Greco to tell her 2 delineators are out? I think that's nonsense.
So maybe instead of having employees, maybe we wanted to say the mayor and department heads or their designee. That way it kind of covers different avenues for who you can ask a question of. What are some thoughts on that?
Like what Paul wants you to call JB to put something up, it needs to be the department heads and the mayor.
So what do you want it to say then? What did you suggest, Pat, or Kelly?
Mayor and department heads.
Where employees is
Yep,
now.
where employees is written in that second sentence.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Just for
That's the same thing you've been doing for years, though. Are you not understanding what he's saying?
I'm just saying, you want to limit it to the mayor and department heads, and I'm saying on the occasion that I know Paul Heading's gone on vacation, I'm still gonna copy the mayor. I'm always gonna copy the mayor. The mayor's always in the flow of conversation. But if I know that department head's not there, then I would be taking upon myself, and again, I'm not directing anybody to do anything. I'm asking questions because somebody asked me a question. And I'm just trying to gather information and respond to them, which I think is more efficient than taking what they tell me and then telling them, well, you call somebody else. But let me know how that goes. I don't see the efficiency in that at all. But I'm just saying, I think it's fine the way it is, where it says make inquiries of employees. I mean, that covers everybody. I don't see what the problem is with that.
I see it as, it could potentially be interference.
Interference. How would it be interference?
So if there's a problem, then you CC the mayor and the department head. But telling somebody that works for him or works for her in that department to do something, that's a response.
Well, let me throw this out
You're
here.
asking though, right?
Let me throw this out here real quick.
Question.
Let's take a look at, so what A is trying to get at is appropriate, mutually agreed upon ways of communicating. B is kind of addressing some of those concerns that maybe the mayor has had or experienced over time, or other council members have experienced over time. Maybe it would be beneficial to look at B and then go back and look at A and see, does B address some of those concerns? And then focus on, if B addresses our concerns, then how do we interact appropriately?
Okay. Let's look at it.
Yeah, and B does get into directing, to not allow directing, and
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Yep.
Yeah, so I guess the point with A is, who do we all feel is the appropriate first point of contact for a citizen complaint, a question, an agenda item, things like that? And something to consider too is, we are lumping both kind of citizen complaints and agenda items together. So when you have an agenda item, 9 times out of 10, I think council is probably going to contact the department head that's submitting that agenda item. If it's a citizen complaint, it might be the mayor and the department head, or if you know that there's an employee who was out on the street and saw that and maybe told you about something.
Mr. Morrissey.
Okay, two things. First of all, one of the things that is important about this is the wording of it, because one of the things that we have added to this, which may pass, are violations of this and what that could mean to a sitting council member. So I keep that in the back of my head whenever we're talking about this, and if we make it in such a way that the chances of violation become a little bit easier but less understandable by new council members coming in that weren't part of this discussion, I think that's a problem. And then the second thing is that we got ABC here, and I know that I would like to add a D, and that would say that council members have every right to speak with any city staff outside of city staff paid work time. I think people need to know that I'm a private citizen, they're a private citizen when they're not in work time, if they wish to discuss things. So that's their constitutional right to
I think
freely
generally that's
talk,
what
so.
C is addressing. And it's covering in situations where an employee approaches a council member and the communication does not involve a complaint, concern with regard to other city employees' duties, working conditions, supervisors, or other terms of employment, council member may freely speak with that employee.
But what I'm saying is that does not include a city council member wanting to reach employees about issues on non-work time. Because on non-work time, that employee is a private citizen and have every right to talk to anybody on their own time. That's what I'm saying.
Is there any way, if we do that, that the council member is not under the protections of the city? Because if that is on that person's own time, we've had situations where folks have thought there was retaliation or being approached outside of work time by council members. How do you balance that, and what portions of a council member doing something outside of that person's work time? How do you keep the city from not being liable for that situation? Because we've had just the polar opposite of that as well. Because this is,
Mr. Morrissey, are you getting at, like, if you wanted to go up and talk to an employee that you saw at Irish Fest, for example, about Irish Fest, things like that? Or
Yeah, and we
are you
started
meaning
talking
like,
about city issues.
are you meaning like city issues outside of their normal working hours, have those discussions?
Right, I'm not talking about calling, talking to somebody and railing on them. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what's going on in the city, how they're doing with their job, some changes that need to be made in their job, stuff like that, when they're not on work time, when it's a non-work setting where the city's not paying them, where I'm not in a quorumed meeting, that kind of thing, so.
I
I
disagree.
think there's a legal liability,
Yeah.
but it's a good discussion.
I
Mrs. Klein.
just think that's, could border on very inappropriate. We are not their administrator. We are not their supervisor. We do not judge the quality of their work. We would only be hearing one lopsided side of it. It could cause havoc with an administrator. It could undermine them. It just has a potential for being such an awful thing.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just
Yes, sir.
talking about freedom of speech, that people have a right to talk to each other. If there are rules while you're working, and those are work rules, and there are things that I have to go under, which is what this is, then it should not take away the fact that people can talk to one another freely in an open society.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
what are the work hours for a council member, Mr. Morrissey? Mr. Morrissey, my concern is that there are no work hours for council members, so there's no after-work time for us. So anytime we're talking, that employee has the right to believe that they're talking to a city official.
Well, it's my responsibility, Ms. June, to tell them that I'm not,
Off the clock?
that I am not in standing at this point in time, because I The only time I'm in standing and have any authority is when I sit in a body where there's a quorum, just like you. Okay, I will take their information, I will give them my opinion, and that's my opinion only. That's my responsibility to tell people that. It's not theirs, it's mine. And that's what I would do. And that's probably, I think, necessary for people to understand the responsibility that goes with this job is to separate out those differentiations, but at the same time, be letting people know that I have a right of free speech when I'm away from that quorum, and they have a right to free speech when they're away from their work. And that's all I'm saying by adding D here, is that that needs to be present so that people don't feel hamstrung. And I'm not talking about calling somebody and trying to play the mayor. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having a frank discussion.
But your intentions may be pure, but what about the flip side when those intentions aren't pure? What are the parameters? I understand exactly what you're saying, but what are the parameters? What legal implications do we open ourselves up to? And we have examples where that situation has happened. But if you want to,
Just, Mr. Mayor, you know, if somebody's in trouble, we have no right, we already got this in here, we have no right to discuss any kind of disciplinary or any kind of personnel matters with an employee. I'm not talking about that. And because that's already addressed in here, we can't do that. We can't disparage an employee. That's harassment. They could file a complaint on us of harassment or however they wanted to do it. I'm talking about the free exercise of being able to talk about city issues with city employees on their non-work time and when I'm not in a quorum setting, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
yes,
Could that
ma'am.
involve, non-work time? So in other words, if we went that direction, a council person could hold a meeting with employees in the evenings and they could agitate that way. I just see all kinds of downsides to this. Freedom of speech, non-work hours. I just think it's inappropriate. I really do, and I support A, B, and C.
So it's 5:13 now. We have to get to the finance meeting. We will put our thumbs on this particular part for more discussion.
Motion adjourned.
One more thing, just in the interest of time when we're having discussions, if there are entire sections that you're wanting to add, I think it would maybe be beneficial as we're working through this to submit those to me ahead of time so that copies of that can be disseminated out to the council. Otherwise, I think it might make discussion a little bit more difficult. And number two, council can chew on this for a week because we're going to pick this back up next week. We may want to consider voting on some language changes to help expedite the discussion. I know we normally don't vote in work sessions, but it's something to consider to help make sure that we're continuing to move through.
All right.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion been made with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn. Finance.
Committee of the Waterloo City Council, roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey? Mrs. Jewin?
Here. Motion to approve the agenda and minutes, please.
Second.
Madam Chairperson, I move that we approve the agenda or the minutes as of July 1st, 2019 as proposed.
Second.
Second, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would someone take the travel request, please?
Madam Chairperson, we have some travel requests tonight. First off is the request for Abraham Funchess, Executive Director, Rebecca Johnson, HR Specialist, Shelley Birch, Admin Secretary, to attend the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission Federal Employment Partnership Agency Conference in San Diego, California, June 17th to the 21st, amount not to exceed $5,878.89. Officer Lindeman to attend the K-9 Handlers Course in New Hartford, Iowa, July 22nd through August 2nd, amount not to exceed $8,500. Kelly Falkley, City Clerk, to attend the 2019 Iowa League of Cities Annual Conference in Dubuque, Iowa, September 25th through the 22nd, not to exceed $598.20. ARFF maintenance employees to attend the live aircraft fire hot burn training provided by the University of Missouri. Destination is Dubuque Regional Airport. The date is September 21st, 5th, and 26th, amount not to exceed $1,800. And lastly, Keith Kaspar, Airport Director, to attend the Four States Airport Conference in Kansas City, Missouri, August 26th to the 28th, amount not to exceed $925.
Would you include six?
And number 6, Madam Chairperson, is a request for approval to accept bids and to sell the damaged skate park components.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Morrissey, would you take the pre-authorizations, please?
Yes, first of all, the motion to approve the following. First of all, the city clerk with the amount and estimated shipping and handling, $15,581 for annual dues for the Iowa League of Cities for fiscal year 20. Next is engineering, amount and estimated shipping and handling, $5,455 for Iowa Stormwater Education Partnership annual membership dues. Next is the fire department with the amount and estimated shipping and handling, $3,415 for the rear hitch and 500-pound slide-out tray for engine 303. Next is the garage with the amount and estimated shipping and handling of $5,151.21 plus $200 shipping and handling for stainless steel square tubing for salt boxes on tandem trucks. Next is a garage with the amount and estimated shipping and handling, $8,819.96 plus $300 shipping and handling for liners for the inside of garbage trucks 007 and number 202. Next is leisure services, amount and estimated shipping and handling, $2,066.45 for replacement UV light bulbs for the Sportsplex swimming pool. Next is leisure services, amount and estimated shipping and handling, $1,580 for television advertising through On Media to promote memberships at the Cedar Valley Sportsplex. Next is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling of $10,000 for television advertising through On Media to promote memberships at the Cedar Valley Sportsplex. And number 15 is the planning department with the amount and estimated shipping and handling, $30,335 for installation of an access drive off of Highway 63 North connecting to the Logan Avenue frontage road.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can we combine budget line items and other committee business? Would someone take 16 through 22, please?
Madam Chairperson, budget line items to be amended. Approve the project budget for the Cedar River Marina District Design Project funded by Blackhawk County Gaming Association funds in the amount of $127,000 submitted by the Planning Department. Approve the project budget for the Ridgeway and Greyhound Traffic Safety Improvements Project funded with a grant in the amount of $310,000 as submitted by the Traffic Superintendent. Also, to approve the project budget for the fiscal year-end 2020 Sportsplex Marketing Project funded with the hotel motel taxes in the amount of $10,000 as submitted by Leisure Services. And other committee business we have today is to a refund request in the amount of $79.10 for yard waste can fees paid in error on a property located at 712 Dawson Street. A refund request in the amount of $181.75 for garbage collection fees paid in error on a property located at 327 Congress Street. A refund request in the amount of $31.50 for garbage collection fees paid on a vacant property located at 213 Summit Avenue. And lastly, a refund request in the amount of $37 for yard waste can fees paid in error on a property located at 1706 Hawthorne Avenue.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, as in the accounts payable dated July 8th, 2019, please receive, place on file, and forward to the full council. in the dollar amount of, bear with me a sec, $4,603,995.49.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.